And we're back with Zachary Cutlip, a security researcher with Tactical Network Solutions in Columbia, Maryland, where Zack develops exploitation techniques targeted at embedded systems and network infrastructure. Since 2003, Zack has worked either directly for or with the National Security Agency in various capacities. Before embracing a lifestyle of ripped jeans and untucked shirts, he spent 6 years in the U.S. Air Force, parting ways at the rank of captain. Zack holds an undergraduate degree from Texas A&M University and a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University. And Zack will be here to talk about the research on exploiting embedded systems and his exploit development framework, Bowcaster. Zack, welcome to the show. We had one of your co-workers, Craig Hefner, on the show previously, who's one of my heroes. When I do embedded security research, I use his software quite often. So
be sure to pass it on.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And so from this point on, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll interject if I have questions, but right now it's going to be your show for the next 20 or so minutes.
Okay. All right, then. Well, I guess I'll just introduce Bowcaster and kind of talk about that a bit and maybe go into why I put it together and what we use it for. When Craig and I first started researching and exploiting embedded devices like wireless routers and little embedded cameras and things like that, all these embedded devices that run Linux and have MIPS CPUs in them, there just wasn't a lot of there weren't a lot of tools readily available to exploit those devices. There weren't a lot of established techniques. So we sort of had to figure all that out on our own. And there was a lot of knowledge about exploiting buffer overflows on like x86 systems and ARM smartphones and whatnot. But going after these little embedded devices just wasn't something that a lot of people were doing just yet. And just by way of example, last year I presented a talk at Black Hat where I combined a SQL injection with a buffer overflow to get root on a Netgear router. And I went back a few months later to look at my exploit code, and I just couldn't figure out what it did because it was just such a mess because I basically hacked it together. And I tried to use a payload and a payload encoder from a Metasploit because Metasploit provides one payload and one encoder that work on MIPS. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't able to get those to work, so I ended up finding one somewhere else and wrote my own payload. And anyway, I just stitched it all together, and it was just a giant mess. And so I thought, I ought to take what I've learned and take these tools that we've developed, and I've written a number of payloads now, and I've got an encoder, and kind of pull it all together in a sort of a framework where you have an API, so that the next exploit code we write, it's a lot easier to write. We're coding it against an API, so it's easier to understand and easier to refactor. And then months later, when you go back to look at it, you can understand what all it does. So I pulled all those pieces together, and I thought, this might be something that people are interested in. I don't know if there are a lot of other people doing MIPS exploitation on embedded devices, but just in case someone's interested in it, I'll go ahead and put it online on GitHub. And it turns out there actually has been quite a bit of interest in it, and there have been quite a few people pick it up and give me some pretty good feedback about it. So just briefly, I want to kind of I've got the Bowcaster source code open, and that's one of the easiest ways to kind of give you a tour of what all is in here. And keep in mind that it is primarily for exploiting, for writing and exploiting buffer overflows, or writing buffer overflow exploits targeting MIPS Linux devices. It is reasonably modular, so at some point I can pull in some payloads and encoders that will work on work with other architectures, but other frameworks kind of have x86 and ARM sewn up, so we didn't really need to worry about that too much. The thing that there wasn't anything good for was MIPS, so that's where I put all my effort. So anyway, I'm going to switch over here and give you just a kind of a look at some of the modules that I've got in Bowcaster and sort of point out what they do. And so we're going to be diving into some Python source code. Hope that's okay with everyone. All right, let's see if I can figure out.
You can only show it if you convert it to Ruby right now.
Okay, I'll just code it in Ruby on the fly.
Please don't. Just kidding.
Let's see. I'm looking for how to share screen. I think conversation.
So you've written some shellcode for MIPS.
Yeah,
and sharing your screen in Skype is.
Okay, so now
I'm just busting your balls, Zack.
Okay. All right.
I think it's interesting if the Skype people that develop Skype are listening that your interface sucks. So.
It's not great, is it? So can you see TextMate on the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got the source code here to Bowcaster, and I've got a number of things. I think of interest are a few payloads I've written for MIPS. So I'm going to expand this out, and I would say the primary payload is this connectback payload, right? And this is kind of a canonical. I mean, this is a really classic payload. So basically, when you throw this at a buffer overflow and it executes it, it establishes a TCP connection back to your own server. So you might be running netcat or something like that, and then you get a connectback shell on the device. So I've got MIPS assembly code here for both big and little endian. And then we've got this other payload built in here that I call Trojan Dropper, and it works pretty similarly, except it's instead of connecting back and giving you a shell, it connects back and downloads a file that you serve up to it. So maybe you're exploiting a system that doesn't have a lot of useful command line utilities, and you want to bootstrap something on there like wget or something like that. So you might use this payload that would then connect back, download a second stage payload, then have that payload connect back and download wget or TFTP, and then from there you're off and running, and then you can download some more tools.
Zack, is it writing what it downloads to the flash disk, or is it keeping in memory? Or
yeah. So by default, so the way it works, it actually drops whatever file you serve it into /var, which on embedded devices is going to be in a RAM disk.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's still limited in space, though.
Right. So you're not going to put something really big on there, but you can put like a TFTP client.
You need something, right? Because a lot of these embedded systems have nothing on them.
Yeah, I've actually been on systems that there's not even a Shamad or a just basic Unix utilities. So one of the things I'll load on there will be I'll build my own BusyBox that has all the features turned on. And I'll drop BusyBox on there. So anyway, so we've got this download and execute payload, which is pretty cool. And then I've also got one of the things I'm kind of proud of is this MIPS encoder. So if you're if you're going to be connecting back to an IP address, say that has a 0 in it, that 0 would be a null byte in your connectback shell, right? So you're going to have to encode that null byte out in most likely. So before throwing the exploit, you can run your payload through an encoder, and it'll encode out whatever bad bytes you tell it to. So I got that.
MIPS is strange. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a pretty typical problem. And there are a number of encoders for x86, right? So there's an XOR encoder, and there's an alphanumeric encoder, but
those all have to be rewritten for the MIPS platform.
Yeah, exactly. Metasploit provided a MIPS XOR encoder, but I never could get it to work, and so I ended up writing my own. So we've got encoders here, we've got payloads, I've got some connectback servers. So instead of using netcat, you can actually import a connectback server module into your exploit code, right? So right in line, you start up the server, and it runs in the background. Then you throw the exploit, and then the exploit calls back, and so it's all one program. So you don't have to have two different terminals where you've got in one terminal you start up netcat, and in another terminal you throw your exploit. This has actually got the server built into your exploit code.
Now, Zack, certainly there's got to be something on the MIPS platform that is preventing exploitation in these payloads from running, right?
So the MIPS Linux devices don't really have all the modern protections. At least most of the ones that we've looked at don't really have all the modern protections that like modern operating systems do, right? So in modern operating systems, you see things like full ASLR, where all the libraries and executable is randomized. Like the stack isn't executable, and all that stuff. Like the iPhone and Android are running signed code. We don't have any of those protections on wireless routers. So
it's really not. I mean, there are some papers out there about it, but I really don't find that it's implemented on really any embedded systems.
No, and they're mostly running old Linux kernels. And what kernel version various security features came into? It really depends on the architecture, and so for MIPS, most of the advanced features don't come in to the Linux kernel until much later.
Basically, what you're saying is if you can port your exploits and encoders and payloads to run on the MIPS platform, it's hacking like it's 1999.
Yeah, I mean, really. In fact, I think in one of my talks, I had a slide that said "Party like it's 1996" because it was 1996 when ALF1's seminal stack smashing paper came out, and so we've all known about stir copies and sprintfs for like almost 20 years, but we're still seeing all that in wireless routers. So I can switch over and actually show you some exploit code, and just as an example, I thought just this morning I thought, okay, I actually want to develop a fresh buffer overflow for the show, and so we've got a router that we use for the class. It's the D-Link DIR815. In fact, let me switch over to the camera so that.
So wait, this is an exploit for that platform for which there's never been publicly.
I don't think this has been published before. I mean, I won't swear to it, but I don't believe so. All right, are you seeing me now or the screen?
I see myself, which is disturbing.
That's weird.
And Steve, which is
okay.
Disturbing.
Okay, wait, here we go. All right.
Yeah, now we see you.
Okay, so I'm going to drag this router over here so you can see it. Okay, it's this little D-Link DIR815, and we actually use this in the embedded device exploitation class. And if you take the class, you actually get one of these to take home.
What is it now? It's a D-Link?
Yeah, it's a DIR815. Yeah.
DIR815.
So anyway, so this morning I thought, okay, I want to develop a fresh buffer overflow, and I don't want to show off one for the show that I've already been showing people. So I thought, how quickly, if I have a known vulnerability, how quickly can I develop a working exploit, actually get root using Bowcaster? When I developed my exploit that I told you about for Black Hat, I think I spent like literally weeks on it. I mean, it's probably 3 or 4 weeks trying to get reliable execution because none of those tools existed, and we had to figure it out as we were going along. So fast forward to today, and we've got Bowcaster and we've got techniques. How quickly can I develop an exploit? So I put on an album of techno music and started coding, and that album ran out, and I put on a second album, and in about 2.5 hours, I had root on this device with really modular exploit code. So let me show you what the exploit code looks like. Hopefully, it'll make sense. Sorry about that. I'm gonna try to switch like to screen sharing here. Okay, yeah, Skype's interface really is pretty terrible.
Yeah, isn't it though? It's awful.
Okay, so here we have just a Python script where I import all the tools from the Bowcaster toolbox that I'm going to need.
Can you zoom in on that?
Okay.
Like not on your Mac, but like in the application itself. Can you like Command plus? I know Mac has a function key, but for whatever reason that doesn't translate to.
Let's see. Sorry about that.
If you zoom, yeah,
there's got to be a way.
We're not necessarily in full high definition. To see that small font, unfortunately.
Tell you what, I bet if I change screen resolution.
There you go. That might work. Oh, now you lost your screen sharing.
Did it kill the screen sharing?
Yeah, you might have to just re-enable the screen sharing.
Okay, share screen. How's that?
That's a little better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I'm sure there's a way to set the text size on here, but I just don't know off the top of my head what it is.
No worries.
Anyway, sorry, it's not even bigger. But so we started off just by.
I said that to my wife all the time.
Yeah, well. So we import our various tools from Bowcaster that we need. Like we need a tool that'll let us describe a buffer overflow. We need a payload, so we import that. We need a connectback server, so we import that. We need an encoder. We're going to need an HTTP client to actually throw our exploit. So we just import all those tools from Bowcaster. And then I'll just kind of walk you through how we describe the buffer overflow. And we're going to have to build build a ROP chain, which for those that aren't familiar with ROP, basically you're taking advantage of code snippets that are already loaded into the program's memory. And we're going to use that ROP chain to help us defeat the randomization of the stack. So we've got a gadget here that will load.
And just to clarify, that randomization is not necessarily on purpose. That's just your average randomization.
So the stack is randomized on these systems as a security feature. It just so happens that it isn't a very good security feature because nothing else is randomized, right? If the libraries were also randomized, I wouldn't be able to use these ROP gadgets because like this address right here, I would make no sense because the library load addresses would be randomized. So we've got a ROP gadget that loads an argument to sleep. Here's the address of the sleep function, and we have to call sleep in order to flush the CPU's cache. Our payload sits in the cache until that cache gets flushed, so we won't be able to execute the payload. So we've got to call sleep, and that actually forces the cache to get flushed. And then basically these next three ROP gadgets help us locate the stack, and then ultimately help us jump back into the stack where our payload is going to be located. So we instantiate a connectback payload. We pass the payload to the encoder to sanitize out any bad bytes. And then, And then, are you still? Am I still with you? We're still together?
Yeah, I hit something on my laptop, which you sound is plugged into the soundboard. Sorry.
And then once we've described all those sections of the buffer overflow, then we go ahead and instantiate our buffer overflow object. And then we go down here and actually, then we actually send the buffer overflow to the web server. We've already started up our connectback server, and then we basically have the server wait for an incoming connection. And then if it works, then we get a root prompt on the device, and we're good to go. So, so if you want, I've got this router powered on, and I've got a terminal up, and we can go ahead and give it a try if that sounds good.
Do it.
Okay. It's like they say, root or it didn't happen, right?
That's right.
All right.
Shut up or shut up.
Let's see if I can find my terminal. Who knows where it went? Okay, I know I can make this font bigger. So let's see. Is that font big enough? Can you see it?
A little bigger.
A little bigger.
Bigger. Every time I say that, I can't help but think of the movie Weird Science.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, how's it looking now?
Looks good.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to run the script, and we'll see it do a few things. That it's going to build the payload. We'll see it actually. It'll print a message that says it has encoded the payload. Then it'll print a message that says it started up the connectback server, and then it'll print a message saying it's throwing the exploit. And the reason I'm describing it to you now is because it all happens almost instantaneously, so it'll go by pretty fast. So, okay, go ahead and run the exploit. I gotta give it an IP address. Okay. Well, that's disappointing. Please don't tell anyone that my password is all stars. All right, so it doesn't work if I don't actually set my IP address right. All right, here we go. Hopefully this time it'll work. You know how live demos go.
Hey, watch this.
And then here it says target is phone home, which means that we have our root prompt. Now, unfortunately, because of the way connect-back shells work, you don't actually get that satisfying hash, right? But I type ls, and I see the files on the system.
Nice.
Uname, -a, says we're running Linux. So the connect-back shell is actually pretty weak. You don't get any command history. If you hit Control-C, it'll actually kill your shell. So before we do that, let's fire up a telnet server.
I was going to say it's a shell, not a terminal, so you have to be careful.
So let's fire up a telnet server to get us a little bit better shell. Okay, and then log in via telnet, and now we're in.
Yeah, now you can...
So there you go.
Edit files and stuff. Nice.
There's BusyBox, all the functions that BusyBox has on there.
So now, the process that you were exploiting, is that the buffer overflow in the HTTP server itself?
So it actually is not in the HTTP server itself. What happens is there are a number of requests that come into the web server that the web server then farms out to a CGI program. And it's just a binary executable on the system. It's a pretty nice one to exploit because unlike exploiting the web server, where your exploit will crash the server, well, when this program crashes, it doesn't matter because a new instance of it will get kicked off every time you make a new request. So you can literally throw the exploit at it over and over and over again, and it keeps on working.
And that CGI program is usually to like pull the configuration and let you change the configuration on the device, right?
This in this one and as is the case on a lot of D-Link devices and really a lot of Soho routers, this CGI executable actually handles almost every single HTTP request. Like the web server gets the request and then immediately hands it off to the CGI program.
Well, I've seen that a lot where there's one big binary blob that like does everything, and like the web server is almost insignificant. It just is handling the HTTP.
Yeah, that's
and this binary blob, and then they do that, I think, to save space, right?
You know, more than likely, they've got a web server that's been bundled in there with the SDK, and the SDK is put together by Broadcom or whoever makes the chipset. And then rather than modify the web server or whatnot, they just write a CG. They basically just write an add-on program.
Well, yeah, because they don't want to have to support PHP or Ruby on Rails because that'd be way too big and overwhelm the device. So they write their own custom code and compile it for that platform.
So there's no way to put Ruby on Rails on here or Django or anything like that. So I've seen that a lot. I've seen that in commercial. I've seen that in a lot of commercial embedded devices too. And again, I think it's to save space because they can't put a full interpreted. That's exactly right. Yeah, and it just doesn't, just doesn't have the CPU power to run, run Ruby or Python.
Which means, as we all know, when people do things themselves, like write their own kind of web scripting language themselves or write their own crypto, usually that spells disaster when it comes to security.
Yeah, and in this case, what they're doing is the web server is taking whatever is in the cookie field of the HTTP headers and actually setting an environment variable, and the CGI program then reads that environment variable and then sprintfs it with an unbounded sprintf. So instead of putting a legitimate a cookie string in there, I put my buffer overflow in the cookie field. And
I have to say, it doesn't. They don't have the benefit of this being open source either, right? Like this code is completely proprietary. If it's got Broadcom anywhere attached to it, it's completely proprietary. The embedded device manufacturer is not releasing this code open source, so no one else is looking at it but the people in the embedded development device group.
Right, and even on embedded devices where they do have a GPL release, many of the embedded devices do. You can go to the website and download a GPL release. Usually the GPL release is terrible. I mean, it's just awful, and
no one wants to look at it because it hurts.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure what they do. Like I can just imagine the way it works is that someone says, "Hey, you need to, like the manager says, hey, you need to take all your GPL code and put it online, and so the developer just basically tars up his workspace, puts it online, and so you download this GPL release. It's like hundreds of megabytes. It's got tons of duplicated code,
and usually get their username because they tarred up their work.
That's exactly right. I mean, a lot of times, sometimes you'll find some gems in there, like they may actually tar up their compiler and their tool chain, which is kind of cool. But I mean, they don't mean to do that, but they do.
Right.
So, yeah,
that's really awesome. And so now your code is freely available to do all this.
Yeah, that's right. You can get that from my GitHub repo, and then also this exploit code is available on I've got a GitHub repo called Exploit POC, so you can get this exploit code that I've demoed for you tonight.
And of course, no one opens up their wireless routers to the internet, so there's no chance that.
So this is actually a pretty nice one. If you do turn on remote admin, this particular vulnerability, there's no authentication between me and the CGI program. So if you've turned on remote admin, this vulnerability is exploitable from the internet.
Wow. I just had evil thoughts about messing with my neighbors. I apologize for that.
Yeah, or messing with someone in some other country. Who knows?
Well, and conceivably, this could work from the wireless side as well, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And if the device is vulnerable to Reaver, right? I mean, you can get on the network that way, and then pop root on their device, and then guess what? You're root on their network.
Mm-hmm. That's really awesome. And of course, this can work on other devices and models as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And now, were you to discover? I mean, would you look at the firmware first, and as part of your vulnerability discovery, or would you kind of run this device more in an emulation mode and attack it from the network when?
No, I almost always crack open the firmware and then just start looking at starting with the web server, the web interface. That's
web interface binary blob is a very fruitful.
And just
get to that.
Usually, it's so first I'm usually looking for command injections, right? If I can find a command injection, then I only have to write a buffer overflow. And so you can find command injections just by running strings on the binary. Sometimes really obvious command injections will pop out that way. But if I'm looking for a buffer overflow, usually I will open up like the CGI binaries in IDA Pro and just kind of start poking around and looking for stir copies and sprintfs because most of these devices are just not at the level where we're having to look for really, really subtle nuanced bugs. So just really dumb buffer overflows usually is all we need.
Nice. Awesome. So coming up, you guys, are you giving any talks? Or are you running some classes coming up?
Yeah, we do have the embedded device exploitation class, and we're running it regularly. So I believe you can go to tacnetsoul.com/training to find out more about our training offerings. And if you want to know about analyzing embedded devices like routers, definitely it's a really good class. Craig actually put the class together, and Craig was working on developing this class even before either of us worked at this company. And then Craig brought the class with him to TNS, and we've been offering it for the past year and a half. It's a really good course. Awesome. And so definitely check out that. And if you're in the UK or you're going to be in the UK, there's a conference called 44Con in September, and I'll be presenting some research that I did on a BT wireless router at 44Con. I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, those are big in Britain. Funny how it works, huh?
The BT Home Hub, I think, is one of the most widely deployed devices in the UK.
Yeah, but at least it's rock solid, right?
So it definitely wasn't the complete shit show that some of the devices are.
Earlier versions of the BT Home Hub. Who was it that was doing research on that?
Who was it?
They haven't done it. Their blog was really popular. Right after we started the podcast.
Yeah. They had a Ning community.
You think a new citizen?
Yeah,
that's it. We got it. Right.
Yeah.
They did a lot of BT Home Hub hacking
Yep.
stuff way back in the day.
And I have one of those BT.
I
Home
do
hubs in my
too.
basement.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, I was doing some research on the Home Hub 3.0B, which at the time still hasn't been unlocked. And at the time, no one had gotten root on it, and some guys online emailed me and said, "Hey, we saw you on the Hack 5 podcast and wondered if you would be interested in kind of joining in the effort." And I was like, "Well, ship me some hardware and I'll take a look, but no promises." And sure enough, they mailed me some hardware over, across the ocean, and so I spent some time researching it. And I gotta say, I mean, there was some shaky code in it, but it wasn't bad. And most of the really obvious stuff that I looked for right out of the gate, I just couldn't find. So it was kind of surprising.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thank you very much.